Hello, Scrappy friends. It's Paige Evans, and before we dive into learning how to create this Memory Dex card, I want to talk about Memory Dex cards because maybe you've never heard of it before and maybe you don't understand what they're for. So I want to talk a little bit about Memory Dex cards. So Memory Dex was invented by Heidi Swapp maybe 12, 13, 14 years ago, and it's basically a scrapbooker's version of a Rolodex. So let me bring in some examples. The very first Memory Dex project that I ever did was actually a December daily for 2015. So Wilna Furstenberg asked me to participate in a Christmas class with her. And so, there's so many different ways that you can document your December, whether it's in a traditional scrapbook, handmade or purchased, or like a journal. I decided to do mine Memory Dex style. So it's got these bars at the bottom and it's in this box. This is the Heidi Swapp brand. And as you can see, I've got different shaped cards, my photos for December throughout. This is when we lived in Germany. And I think I'm sure I have a YouTube flip through of this on my channel. So yes, fun to look through. And yes, I used to have red hair. Some of these are made from vellum. I've got some that are made from photos. We went to Christmas markets, so I have pockets where I've got tons of photos inside. So here is my Christmas Memory Dex, my December daily for 2015 in this pre-made box. Now, to put those back in order, but how do you get this shape? There's a couple different ways. The easiest way is the punch. So this is the punch by Heidi Swapp. This is the standard size of a Memory Dex card. So it's about, I'll grab my ruler. It's about 4 inches. So 4 inches is the size of a card that will fit inside the box. Now this is 4 1/4 inches, but you use these lines as a guide for centering these holes when you are punching them, right? So I will show you how to do that when we make this card. There are also a bunch of dies on the market. I feel like Memory Dex has gone around, come around, makes a comeback, goes to sleep for a little while, and then comes back. So these are the dies by Heidi Swapp. These are the ones that I did use to make my Christmas cards. I also have cut files in my shop to make Memory Dex. Or you can also just use a 1/4 inch hole punch as long as they are spaced this distance, which is about 1 inch apart. As long as your holes are spaced 1 inch apart, that's how they will fit onto the Rolodex style trays and boxes. So here's one kind of tray. There are several different kinds of ways and things that hold Memory Dex trays. This is a freebie that was gifted to all the participants who came to the in-person Lovely Lane weekend event a couple weeks, well now I guess it's like a month or so ago. This is made by Sache. She has an Etsy shop. So as you can see, it's got the Rolodex style bars and you can add your Memory Dex cards onto it. So a cute little custom acrylic tray. Heidi Swapp also came out with a couple styles of these spinners. So this is a light pink spinner. I know there was also a black one. And at our in-person events here in Colorado, we did Memory Dex card swaps. So everybody got one of these and you can spin it and the cards roll around. So these are all handmade by the participants. So this is what we used for Sugar Plum Wishes weekend. So many of these are Christmas themed. But yes, this is just like a Rolodex spinner, but for scrapbookers. Okay, so there is the spinner. We've got a tray, we've got a spinner, And I've also handmade wooden trays. Last Thanksgiving, or maybe it was the year before. At one point, anyway, we flew to Spokane, went to Home Depot with my dad, got wood, some plywood, cut it up into different segments, and I glued them all together and created these wooden trays for Tricks and Treats weekend last year. So these are all basically Halloween themed that we swapped at our in-person Tricks and Treats weekend event. So spooktacular, so cute. So here was another option, a wooden tray. I don't have any left in my shop, but of course, if there's enough interest, I can always make more. And you can also make trays from pattern paper. These are also trays and cards that we made at our in-person events. This one was for Garden Shop weekend. So Andrea and I assembled all of these pattern paper trays by hand. We hot glued straws inside. I don't know if you can see down there. There's paper straws down in there, which become the bars for holding the Memory Dex cards. So these are all from a swap. This was Garden Shop weekend, and this was from Splendid weekend, I believe, but we made the trays from Blooming Wild papers. So handmade trays, and I do have a Memory Dex class in my shop, which includes cut files for making the trays and shaped cards. There are 2 more Memory Dex trays that I want to show you. So this black and white striped one is another one from Heidi's Swap. Got it at Joann. Rest in peace. A long time ago. And then this wooden tray is from an Etsy shop. So this is another project that I've done. A few years ago, I went through all of my collections, starting with Fancy Free with pink paisley, and I started making 3 cards with each collection. So this was just a passion project. Memory Dex cards are a great way to try techniques on a smaller scale. So here's one of the cards from Bloom Street. I made a bunch of rolled paper flowers, a lot of pockets. Here's an acetate one. Oh, these are hard to flip through. I'm not sure if I've ever flipped through these on my YouTube channel before, but again, if there's enough interest, I absolutely can. And it was so coincidental because I filled up this pink paisley tray with all of my cards with my pink paisley collections, and then I switched over to the American Crafts brand. So then all of these are made with my collections with American Crafts. So hand stitching, right? Then here's my Sugar Plum Wishes collection. I still haven't made cards with Tricks and Treats and Adventurous and Happy Haven, but it is on my to-do list. So cute little shaker card, a lot of pockets. So for each collection I go through, I print off the logo, I print out some photos of what was happening at the time the collection debuted. So this is Garden Shop, right? So here's some photos of Garden Shop, some journaling about Garden Shop in a little pocket. Here's the one for Splendid. So here's another pocket with some photos and blurbs about Splendid. Little dangle charms. Here is Bungalow Lane. I love hand stitching. Here is Wonders. And then Go the Scenic Route. So that is my short and sweet introduction to Memory Dex cards. It's just another fun aspect of scrapbooking and memory keeping, whether you're adding photos or not. So without further ado, let's create this layered flower Memory Dex card. If you do not have an electronic cutting machine, and you purchased the kit for Happy Haven Virtual Weekend. In your kit, you have these layered flower pieces cut from textured white cardstock. So you'll use these to trace and cut out a large flower, a medium flower, and a small flower from these pattern papers. So this is a double-sided pattern paper, this pink floral. This orange and pink floral is from the project pad, and then this yellow floral is also a 12 by 12 paper. The base of my card is made from one of the deep pink cards in the card making kit. So if you don't have an electronic cutting machine, you will need to trace and cut these out. So I would flip it over, textured side down, the side you want showing face down, and then use a pencil to trace around each piece. So this takes me back to, I don't know, I always remember in kindergarten tracing and cutting out animals. So we made a different animal for each letter of the alphabet. And that was just my favorite thing ever as a kindergartner. And I just remember doing a lot of tracing and cutting. So you'll trace the large one onto the back side of this one. Flip this one over, textured side down. Same thing, just make sure you're centered. Trace. Trace around. I like using mechanical pencils for this because then you can butt the edge of the lead right up against the cardstock. Although I'm standing while I'm doing this, so I'm definitely making some mistakes. But the good thing about tracing on the back side is you won't see. And then same thing. So turn it over, textured side down, and trace. I won't make you watch that. Watch that. If you have an electronic cutting machine, such as a Cricut or a Cameo, the cut file is hyperlinked in the PDF. So if you click on the link, it'll take you to Dropbox where you can download the SVG and Studio 3 files. So SVG you use with Cricut and Brother. The Studio 3 you use with a Silhouette Cameo. And you can have a machine cut out these pieces for you. But there is a way to do it without a machine. So you can cut these out by hand. Either way, whether doing it by hand or machine, you will end up with these 3 layered flower pieces. Next, we want to cut our card base, the Memory Dex base. So in the instructions, it says to cut it to 3 3/4 by 3. So we'll go to 3 3/4 by 3. And then we're going to fold it in half lengthwise. And I'm going to get my Teflon folder so that I can get a nice crease. There we go. Going to glue this card base closed. So I'll let that dry. I have some excess card showing. I am going to trim that off so I don't see any white around any of the edges. And now it's time to punch the classic Memory Dex holes. So I have the folded edge at the top, the edge I glued together at the bottom. And my card is not 4 inches, so it's not going from edge to edge, which means I need to eyeball centering it between these lines and then punch through. It's very thick because it's the entire card. And now this will fit into a standard Memory Dex tray, the Rolodex, a handmade box, But this isn't my card. It's not finished. We're just getting started. The next step is optional. If you want to, you can machine stitch around all of these edges. Here is my tried and true beloved sewing machine. It's a Brother LX2500. I don't think they make this anymore, but I have affiliate linked to one that is very similar. I love that it is analog, it's not digital, and I love the different stitches that it makes. So the ones I use the most are actually number 6. It's just a basic running stitch, and then the space in between the stitches gets smaller as you go down. I also use the zigzag stitches quite a bit. I like to use white Coats & Clark thread, all-purpose, and the tension for my machine is at 2. That's what it was at when it came out of the box, and I just haven't changed it. This lever right here makes it go frontwards and backwards when you're stitching. So usually with fabric, you make it go backwards at the end. Don't really do that with paper. The power button is over here, so that turns it on and off. This knob right here makes the needle go up and down, which is helpful for when you're stitching detailed shapes, such as these flowers, especially the tiniest layer. The bobbin and everything is down in here. And you make the lever go up and down with this knob right here. So every sewing machine is going to be different. You just have to learn. Watch YouTube tutorials for how to set up your machine. And then in here is where I keep the extra needles and this tool to release the needle if I need to clean it off, especially when I'm stitching through ribbons on the edges of my pages. It gets gummed up with adhesive, so I always have Goo Gone on standby to clean off my needle so that it doesn't get stuck. It is actually quite sticky, so I'll need to unstick it. I use a universal needle. So Universal by Schmetz. It's nothing fancy. I also don't really stitch on fabric, like hardly ever. So just the standard universal needle is what works for my scrapbooking paper purposes. And then this is the pedal that I put under my desk, and it's what I press with my foot to make the machine go. So that was my brief tutorial of my sewing machine. If you've never stitched on paper before, MemoryDex cards are a great way to test it out and see if it's something that you like. I always love the texture that it adds. Alrighty, I've got all of my pieces stitched. Took about 15 minutes or so. Now we need to layer our flower. There are a couple ways you can do this. You can either offset the flower petals so they're not the same shape on top of each other. It's rotated slightly, like so, for a fuller flower. Or you could place the same shape on top, centered, and that way I feel like it's more of a distinct flower shape. So well, before we glue them together, I'm going to gently use my fingers to bend up the flower petal edges to give them some dimension, bring these flowers to life, like this. So just gently use your fingers to crease the flower petals. Now I'm going to use liquid glue to attach the flower layers together. I'm only adding liquid glue in the center so that the petals can lift. So there's the center one, or the medium-sized one. Add a little glue on the back of the small one. Okay, and then we're going to attach it onto the card. So to do this, I'm going to add adhesive just on the parts of the flower petal that will be touching the MemoryDex card. I can always go back and add more. So centering it like so. I can flip it over And see if there's, I've got extra glue, so I'm wiping that away. Can add some glue down there. There we go. So here is the Memory Dex card at this point, but I did want to add a few other embellishments to bring it to life. So from the foam stickers, the project pad, and I believe this is a cardstock sticker, but let me double check. Yes, the hummingbird is a cardstock sticker. So first, let's add this peach flower button sticker. This is from the project pad. I'm actually going to attach it with foam squares. So add a few so that it doesn't sag. So a few foam stickers, peel off the protective backing layer, then press it in the center, and then just topping the gold button in the center with an actual foam gold button sticker from the foam stickers, and then a cute little hummingbird from the cardstock stickers. Oh, yeah, there's a little birdie out my window. That's funny. So I'm adding liquid glue. Oh, don't run into the window, birdies. Oh my goodness. That happened the other day. I don't want to talk about it. It survived though. It was a little baby robin. Anyway, hummingbird. And then for the perfect punch of color, I've got 2 green leaf die cuts. Same thing that we did with the flower petals. Let's give these leaves some dimension by gently pinching up the edges. I'm going to tuck the smaller one. So add liquid glue along the back middle. I'm going to tuck the smaller one up here in between this area, and then the larger one right behind. And I love that pop of green that it adds. Really just brings this entire card to life. And then once it's dry, friends, this card is ready to go. Just a fun exercise in layering pattern papers, using some machine stitching, always optional. You could also do hand stitching. And I just really love using the scraps to make Memory Dex cards. So here is my newest Memory Dex tray, the acrylic one by Sache. You press it onto the, what do you call these? They're not straws, just the Rolodex system. And you are ready to add even more Memory Dex cards. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's something else you'd like to see, and have a happy scrappy day.